Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome. My name is Rebecca Stummy. I'm the producer of live programming and events here at LAist, and I'm so happy to see you all tonight. Thank you for being here, and just thrilled to have you here for our final installment in the series with the James Beard Foundation and the first series. Yes. It's been so much fun. Thanks for coming along on this journey. Big thanks to Siobhan. Thank you so much for being such a great partner. The James Beard Foundation is our partner in all of these events, and they have been so wonderful to work with. Please check them out online. They do so much incredible work. I don't have time to talk about all of it because it is truly an immense amount of work that they do in the industry and in the space. So please check them out. Anything they do is amazing. I also want to acknowledge that our program tonight was made possible with support from California Humanities, which is a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. You can find out more at calhum.org. We are very grateful for their support. And I just want to hand it over for a couple of minutes to Ann McBride from the James Beard Foundation.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I have found LA to be so hospitable, and I was just thinking about that again now when you're pointing to the exits. In New York, you're kind of on your own. Anything happens, like, all right, whoever makes it out first. So really appreciate the guidance here. I'm Ann McBride. I'm the Vice President of Programs at the James Beard Foundation, and so I appreciate all of you coming out tonight. We've really enjoyed this collaboration with LAist because JBF celebrates and champions those at the heart of the American food culture, and that is independent restaurants and the chefs who own and operate them, because they make our lives more delicious, whether it's for a casual Friday lunch or it's for a weekend celebration. You might know us for the James Beard Awards, but you've probably dined at restaurants owned by some of the chefs who've participated in our programs, such as our Chef Bootcamp for Policy and Change and our Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Program. There are 10 alums of that program in the LA area, including Linta, who you'll hear from tonight on the panel, and Brittany Valles, whose tacos you've been enjoying during the reception. In addition to the tacos, you will get cake from Flowering LA after the panel, so something very much to look forward to. And I'll just say that it's not enough for us to say that the restaurant industry needs new standard around equity, around excellence, around sustainability, but it's really about supporting the chefs who are trying so hard to establish these new standards. So that's what we're doing with our programs. And the chefs you'll hear tonight really live and breathe that mission, and so does LAist, of really putting people first and taking care of people. And when you eat at restaurants from chefs who have participated in our programs, you can feel good not just about the food you're eating, but the people who are cooking the food, the people who are serving the food, and the chefs who are behind it. So we encourage you to check out our programs at jamesbeard.org. And in the meantime, we're very happy to be here again to celebrate the places that make us. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Ann. And you all may have received information that Antonia Lofaso is no longer able to be with us tonight at the very last minute. Ann has graciously agreed to join the panel for us, and we're going to hear from some incredible, incredible women tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the host for this evening, the host of All Things Considered here on LAist 89.3, Julia Paskin.
Anybody see that Dodger game today? Woo! 51-51. I think maybe 60-60 is possible. I pretend like I know what I'm talking about. Thank you all so much for being here. Very, very happy to be here with such a distinguished panel of guests. I'm going to read a little bit of information so you get to know why they are so distinguished. And then we're going to have a conversation. We'll do a Q&A. We'll have cake. We'll go home. Sound good? Yep. All right. Very good. So first, I will begin with Ann McBride, who you just heard from, who's graciously stepped in here. As Ann mentioned, Vice President of Programs at the James Beard Foundation, in that capacity overseeing the initiatives around industry support, women's leadership, policy advocacy, sustainability, scholarships, education. You're a busy person. and is also the co-author of 7 books and has written about professional and experimental cooking for academic and consumer audiences. And you also remain a member of its Culinary Food and Studies Advisory Council, also a member of the Menus of Change. Wow, you have done a lot, lady.
Much.
It's a lot. We're so happy to have you. All right. And next we have Lynn Ta, co-owner of All Day Baby in Silver Lake. Also, her first restaurant, Here's Looking at You in Koreatown, was named Restaurant of the Year by the Food and Wine magazine in 2017. Lynn Ta was also a fellowship recipient, the first, is that right, of the James Beard Foundation's class of Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Program, also in 2017. That was a year for you, huh? Wow. And also you are a founding member of the nonprofit, the national nonprofit Regarding Her, which we're definitely going to talk more about a little bit later this evening. But it is a nonprofit that is invested in supporting women in the food and beverage industry. And then finally, Chef Danielle Duran-Zecca is known for a style of cooking called Mexitalian. Is that right? Oh, that sounds good. Subtly combines the Mexican food influences of her heritage and her husband's Italian heritage. There is a pop-up called Amiga Amore, featured at the James Beard House this past February. Also, Chef Danielle currently runs the Chef DDZ Catering. Is that how you say it? Which sounds delicious too. And you own your own hot sauce company, El Chorro? Amazing. Before that, you were also a chef with a number of impressive high-end restaurants in New York, including Vespa. And some of you may recognize Chef Danielle from your TVs, having competed in 2 Food Network cooking shows, Kitchen Casino, in which she took first place, and Beat Bobby Flay, where you were inches away from slaying the Flay. Oh, I'd love to see that. So I'm so excited to be here with you. Let's start, if we can, Anne, with you. We were talking in the parking lot, inches away from those delicious tacos, about how you mentioned that 50%, it's about 50%, there's gender parity in culinary schools. But something happens when women enter the workforce. How does that statistic shift, and what have you found in terms of contributing factors?
So it's even slightly more than 50% of women in culinary schools as of the last probably 5 to 10 years. And then entry-level jobs in the restaurant industry, same thing. You're still at 50% parity thereabout. And it's really once you enter, you get to management position that there's a big drop. We did a survey in 2022, State of the Industry survey, and what we found was that 64% of respondents in management position were male, and only 30% were female. And the National Restaurant Association tracks that. They have more women owners. I think they say something like 47%, but they count franchisees also. So it's not just independent restaurant, or it's not management position in independent restaurants. But so there's a big drop there. There's only something like 18% of women executive chefs also. Some of the factors around this, childcare is the one that's very often cited. The fact that, very often once you start deciding to have a family, the restaurant industry is not exactly the easiest industry where to do that. But I think there's a lot more than that. There's also a lack of mentorship that women often say is a big factor in their careers, which is, this is changing, thankfully, thanks to women like Danielle and Lynn, who are, and regarding her and a lot of the women in our programs, who are showing path for being extraordinary managers, owners, etc. in this industry, and how it's possible. But otherwise, there's really been a lack of mentors, which also means that very often, if you are a woman in the kitchen and the rest of the line and the management are all male, it's very easy for them to not necessarily take you under their wings as a mentee the way they might do with men. So there's a childcare element, but there's a mentorship element for sure as well.
Lynn, if I recall correctly, do you also host at the restaurant?
I do.
Okay, so do you find that people treat you differently when they realize that you are not only the host, but also the owner? And what is that shift like?
The shift, it can be pretty evident in a certain kind of clientele. I think hosts sort of receive the beginning of the bad day. They always say restaurants are there to turn your mood around. So, not that tall. I'm sort of, just hovering over my little open table iPad. So obviously, if folks are coming in and, I'm not ready to seat them, et cetera, there can be a little attitude, I suppose. And I've hired male hosts before. I'm not sure that they receive the same kind of demanding nature. But there's this New York Times article that just coincident. There was nowhere else to put it, and it's in a frame, and it's just hanging to my right. And there's this little picture of me and my chef in it. And so sometimes when I'm like running around just to see if the table's ready or the bar seats are ready, I think they have a sudden realization. It's a very old photo from that year, 2017. But I think they sort of realize that they're like, is this your place? So it is interesting. And mainly, I don't care so much for me. I'd rather somebody else be mistook as the owner. I am just curious how my staff are sometimes treated. And obviously, I've employed other hosts at the door. And, and there have been unfortunate days for them, too. So they can be mistreated. And it's something I wish there was, like, I suppose, better education for returned or reverse hospitality.
Something that I had learned from a conversation we had in preparation for tonight was the shift in the industry from the main kind of celebrity or the main event being the owner to that being the chef. And that there's a bit of a celebrity factor. Chef Danielle, you are in all of these worlds. You've dealt with having to perform your job in a performative way. Does it feel different being next to your counterparts?
I think definitely it feels different. And like Lynn, I wear many hats in my restaurant. And so sometimes I will be the person that is food running, and I'm dropping your plate. And so I think that then they will look at me in a different kind of way, that they're like, oh, wait a minute. You are the chef and you are the owner, but you're dropping my food. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm a mom and pop shop. There's no hat that I feel like I cannot wear. But I definitely feel like throughout my journey and throughout my career, it's looked at in a different sort of way. Like, okay, she should be doing these things, or she's like only a chef that is going to go on to TV shows. And that's not what I'm about. I'm about like each part of what the industry offers and just seeing where I can dip my toes in and see where I fit. And I will, like I've even told my husband this, I will be the 90-year-old woman at like the stove, like still cooking in her restaurant, being like, here is your pasta, But for me,
They're very popular right now, aka pasta grannies.
But that's the end goal for me. It's not just about like doing this, and this. It's also about giving the diner, and that's what we all do. We all make experiences for you. We all want to make you happy. Like my end goal is like seeing you smile over one of my plates of food is like, okay, I did my job today. But that goes with other things of me having, like you said, I have a presence in some sort of way. So when I do drop that, they kind of look at me like, wait a minute, don't I recognize you? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And here's your food, and I really hope you enjoy it. So I think it's a little bit of give and take on what it is that I wanted to do with the restaurant and what I wanted to do with my career. And it's, at the end of the day, just putting out the best plate of food.
Following up on some of the points that you were making, Anne, about obstacles that dissuade women from staying in the industry. In regarding her, is there something that continuously rises to the top from the folks that you interact with of, if you had to pick one main issue that is pushing people out of the industry, could you name it?
I think it's just, it's a challenge of balance, but it would be motherhood. And it's, and at the height of COVID, it was just so evident where, I think it was like every other restaurant that was that women were involved in, they were leaving the industry at that point. I remember there was like some statistic out there. Yeah. And, even, Regarding Her was created in November of 2020. And I was on a Zoom call with 8 other peers of mine. And one was breastfeeding, the other one was pregnant, and and they all had kids, and they couldn't be at their restaurants for health reasons as well because it was a pandemic. So even then, it's like people just had to drop off. And when Anne was saying about childcare, even when I think about it now with a couple of my managers that have kids or just want to get a night out, I mean, they cannot find anyone for less than $30 an hour. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, we're very underpaid in our industry, not because we don't want to overpay, we just simply cannot. There's not enough money. So someone has to take care of the kids, so to speak.
Chef Danielle, anything you'd like to add to what you think your peers may not stick around?
I mean, I 100% agree with Lynn on this one. Me having a 5-year-old son myself, it feels like she said, it's insane at, the way that everything is growing so rapidly within the last year. It wasn't only food costs that got raised, it was labor costs that got raised, and our margin for making anything is already extremely low. So to then continue to add these things, it became almost like, is this something that we can continue to do? But also as a woman in the industry, can you have a child and work in the kitchen and then expect to take days off? Because we're also not having enough people that want to work in your kitchen. So yes, I would love to have, every pregnant woman hired by me, but then you need to take a maternity leave. And how do I even find somebody? It's becoming issues with, I think, everything. For me, I feel like my issue when it comes right now, because I am a mother and I am at least able to have my husband as my partner, so one of us can be at the restaurant while the other one goes and tends to our son. But then at the same time, it's finding the people that are correct for your place, that actually want to give you their all. And I think after COVID happened, everybody just kind of got this mentality that they can do it on their own. And there's so many people that still need to be nurtured. And there's so many people that still need to be in good restaurants that can show you the way. But everybody thought, oh, we need to now step up. So we need to step up now, and we no longer need to, employ these restaurants. So I think it's like an overall, it's everything with labor right now, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit more about the challenge of getting investors when you're trying to start your own business. Because I just imagine that the food world is kind of like the entertainment industry, and please correct me if I'm wrong, or like politics, where there is a certain expected charisma that people need to buy into you as a product. Do women struggle with that in terms of being seen in that way?
Oh, 100%. Women struggle being seen and also struggle with having the right amount of confidence, unfortunately, because we're just not taught to have it, right? Like talking about numbers, being comfortable around numbers is not something that is expected of women. That's changing, but there's so much work to do there because so much of it is just really kind of anchored deep down in our own behaviors and in societal expectations, etc. So there's a lot of statistics that show that women-owned businesses and women-owned restaurants return a much higher profit much more quickly than men-owned businesses. But I think something like is it less than 5% of capital actually goes to women? It's a ridiculously low amount. Women don't have the luxury of failure. If you're men and you own restaurants, you can fail over and over and over again. You can close a lot of great restaurants and not so great restaurants. You will always find other people to give you funding for that. And as women, it's a lot more difficult to even start a restaurant, your very first one. But if you fail, it's seen as a failure of you and also a failure of your gender. So I've talked to investors about that who themselves cannot explain. And like, I know that women will return more money, but the other people in my group, in my firm, etc., they're not interested in investing in women as much. And the charisma probably has something to do with it. The fact that we like to mirror and we are with people we feel comfortable with. And so if it's mostly men, it's going to be mostly men and those kind of things. I mean, the two of you probably know that better than any stats that I can cite, but that's a reality that we're really observing.
I'd like to give both of you an opportunity to talk about your own experiences. Do you think your gender played a role in being able to get investors and get the money going?
I think I'm fortunate to say that I think it helped, at least with my first restaurant. I have 9 investors, and here's looking at you, and they're all male. The only 2 women that were very serious, one, I thought she was like totally my ally. I didn't understand why she didn't invest. I was like, what do you mean? We cook such great dinners at your place. I think it's the struggle that I had with accruing female investors in my first restaurant was so much about, I had no track record. I didn't own a restaurant. I had just been a front of house manager at a couple of places. So I think it was challenging for them to see even them in my shoes. With the second restaurant, I'm happy to report over 70% are either women or a person of color. I have 1 million investors in All Day Baby. That was very challenging. It's hard. Sometimes for me, it's hard to keep up with the communication with all of them. I find I'm busy running the restaurants, you know what I mean? And to talk about, why this P&L on this particular day, or why it's low, or why I can't give them more money, or, what is it? Not the dividends, the checks. What are they called? I haven't done it in so long, so I haven't given my investors any money. But like, why? Like, I remember when we got a lot of funding, like either PPP money, or I was very fortunate to receive the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which was a part of the American Rescue Act from Joe Biden, 2021. Anyway, they were like, why can't you give us some of that? And I'm like, because we are still operating a restaurant in the pandemic, and it just felt unreasonable and maybe they wouldn't ask, I don't know, like a male-owned restaurant, those questions, but they were certainly asking me, and they were wondering why at that point our little takeout business wasn't sending them more checks. But I think this is my own personal story, and a lot of this, to your point, Julia, it's like people have to sort of buy into you. Like they're at that point, sometimes at the inception of like a restaurant, no matter how well written or glossy my business plan could be, ultimately they're investing in you. And if I have to. There is no question that you have to show up with lots of confidence, even if it's not what I feel. But I've been lucky to just lean into myself and just being my odd, authentic, vulnerable, strange person self. It's worked, I and sometimes, I don't know. I don't know the answers, and I'll just say that. I don't know if we're gonna make it. I'll just be clear about that.
Thank you. Chef Danielle.
Okay. Lynn, you did so good. I'm like, how do I follow that? For me, it was a huge obstacle. We began the pop-up 7 years prior to the restaurant actually opening. And at the pop-up, I kind of thought, oh, an investor's going to come and they're going to be like, oh, what she's doing is fantastic. Or what she's doing is so great. Like, we need to invest in this. And I didn't get that. I never got that knock on the door. And what it did was it fueled me. And it fueled me because I knew what we had, and I wasn't maybe reaching the right people at the places that I was at. And, I would be popping up at places in a parking lot or in front of a club, and I'm trying to do, pasta there. And they're like, why don't you have hamburgers and hot dogs? Like, what was she doing?
I'm sorry, you were offering post-club pasta?
I was. And I was like, you're going to love the elote. It's so good. And they're like, why don't you have a hamburger? And so then my strategy changed. And I was like, any event having to do with a club, or you put me in a parking lot, it's a mortadella corn dog. And that is it. And you're not going to make me make pasta. And then it came back to like, what is it that I'm trying to do? I'm trying to make pasta with Mexican flavors, but to make it feel like authentic. And so at that point, it was very much, on the journey, like, okay, these people are our people. And when we got into our space, I turned my patio into my pop-up space. So I illegally, yes, everyone, sorry. I illegally, turned my back patio into my pop-up. So I would be cooking out there on anything that you gave me at that point. It was like campfire burners, a barbecue grill. Like somebody would like donate something to be, oh, here's like a pizza oven. You can do stuff with that, right? And I was like, absolutely. If I could put it outside and I can like have it part of my setup. So my pasta well became a deep fryer that you will use in your houses as a deep fryer. I put water in it so it would hold my temperature. I MacGyvered the whole thing. People were looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I just did 80 covers out of this. Like, come on now. And it fueled me. And at that point, that's then when I was like, okay, I want an investor, or I want to take this to the level that I need to take it at. And unfortunately for me, I was like, I don't know, 30 years old. I'm a small Latina woman. And for me, it just felt like I didn't get opportunities. They looked at me and they were like, why aren't you like Consuela as a dishwasher? Like, you're the head chef and you want to be the owner? Like, show me what you got. And I was like, okay, I got a lot. So I did investor dinners, and we also didn't know where to start. There was no book. Like, you can look up like how to open a restaurant for dummies. Like, there's nothing. It's either somebody that tells you or guides you along the way, or you just really say, I want it so freaking bad that I am going to now research every single thing that I need. Because it's not just like a permit from, health department. It's not just this. It's like fire department, get the hood inspected, make sure like everything is running. So it became like, a thing that I felt very daunting and I could not get to. And then once I felt like, Infatuation, they named us best restaurant in 2022 as I was a pop-up in my patio. So then my reservations went from, 40 to overbooked, and I have people on a wait list, and I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, Infatuation, I love you so much. But I'm still cooking on my barbecue. I'm still cooking on my 2 campfire grills. And now I went from 40 covers a night to 80 covers on a pop-up. It was like, oh, how do I do this? And so, then that's when it really began, like, we really need to work in the front of it. And how do I get that investor? And I've had an investor start with us that decided I wasn't the winning ticket. Like, he was like, gave us money and everything and was like, I want it back now. You're not the winning ticket. And then 3 months later, I got James Beard nominated. So go F yourself. And we continue like that today. And we have a wonderful, 2 other investors that, they continue to believe in what it is that we're putting out. You know, they believe in the food, they believe in what it is that we do. And I'm like Lynn, I'm somebody that's inside of our restaurant daily. You will see me making the pasta daily. I am making the sauces. It's not like it's, you know, it's us. So I had to find that person that believed in truly what it was that we did. And then everything kind of was kismet.
I'm curious about the restaurant and kitchen culture. It's been a long time since I worked in a restaurant, but I remember it got heated. You know, the chef would yell, and people, it was fast paced, and you know, there were customers who were so problematic they were literally written into the employee handbook. So like there was some sort of, you know, high level. Anyway, my point is that after thinking about that and watching The Bear, I'm so sorry. I was like, don't bring up The Bear tonight.
I knew you were gonna do this.
I was so sorry.
Literally, I was like, the bear's coming.
It's coming.
Here we go.
But I'm thinking about the
Ask
character.
me how I am.
But there was that Joel McHale character in the last season that you saw how he really messed with the main character, and there's being this very aggressive, potentially kind of chauvinistic vibe going on, and that you had to prove yourself, you had to take the abuse. And I think that exists in a lot of industries. I think it's getting a lot better in my industry, but it, you know, when I first got here, there was a little bit of that too, you know, and I think I'm curious if you feel any different as a woman in those spaces, and if you've had to change your behavior in order to be seen by men in those spaces. Lynn?
Do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay, so yes, I did not see the last season, as the first two triggered me every single freaking night. And I thought, oh, let me go home after my shift and watch The Bear. And to be honest, the scene where he's locked inside of the walk-in on opening day was my nightmare on opening day. Not being locked in the walk-in, but I had dreams like prior to opening day that like, I don't know, I got in like a car crash and like I couldn't get there. And I'm looking at the restaurant, I'm like, no, they don't know what to do. Like, I need to get there, you know? And so then when I saw that scene, I was like, no, way too close for home. And I was like telling my husband too, I was like, don't watch it. You're not gonna wanna watch it. And he even tells me, he's like, why would you like continue to sacrifice like yourself like this? Like, or, you know, like put yourself through this. And it was just because it was so good. It's so good. But this last season I did not watch.
But this character, I think, actually is in the second season. I think he's the very abusive chef
The
in the New York restaurant.
So, okay, so the one that, yeah, and I did see that clip because he tells him, like, how did you do all this to me? And he's like, I made you great, right? So why are you complaining to me? And this was very much my upbringing. And it made me really tough. My first restaurant, I probably cried in the walk-in. I can't even tell you the amount of times. And, you know, I got told things like, you know, you would mess something up, right? And it wasn't just so much like you'd mess it up and be like, okay, throw it away, like you messed it up. It would be so much to the point where it was like, did you put your shoes on right? And I'd have to like stop and think and be like, did I? Well, because you're acting like your head's in your, you know? And I'd be like, got it, cool, okay. I'm gonna go cry in the walk-in again, okay. But it was also like, there's no crying in baseball, you know? And you wanted to be as tough as the men, so if they saw you cry, I mean, I've worked in very tough kitchens. Le Bernardin, Le Coucou, The Modern in New York, where it was part of it, what, you know, it was just part of what it was at that time. It was nothing that you could do at that time. And it was just like, okay, great, I will suck it up. And what it did for me, I mean, it's not good. It's not good behavior. It's not what I put into my restaurant now. But what it did for me was it straightened me up, and it straightened me up so quick. And it was like, I'll never make that mistake again. Never, ever. I never want him to talk to me like that again. But when it came to my restaurant, mistakes are okay. They are what is going to make you better. And even when I mean, it's also about patience. I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of the kitchens are run by males and they don't have patience like a female does. And a female will have patience no matter what. You're just born with it a little bit more. But when you have a child, and like we spoke about this before, it really will make you have patience. Because what are you going to do? You're going to tell your kid, did you put your shoes on wrong
I mean, yeah,
this morning?
Some people will, yeah.
And some people will. And some people will. They will. And that's not people that I want to welcome into my space. Yeah. And so when it came to my space and the restaurant that I wanted to open, yes, I'm a very firm chef. Yes, I need the job to get done. Yes, I will talk to you if I need to talk to you. But I respect you. We love what we do. We say hello and goodbye to each other. I will never curse you out. And all I want at the end of the day is the same goal. We are putting out the best food for everybody. And if they are not doing that, the question that I ask them, and it's not like, oh, would you, F and serve that? No, it's, would you serve that to your grandma? Would you serve it to mom on her birthday? And if the answer to me is, no, I wouldn't, chef, then redo it. But it's not about like, oh, okay, you're messing it up and I hate this and let me toss it. No, it's about stop what you're doing, think about what you're doing, and why wouldn't you season that? Why wouldn't you season that?
The ultimate question, why wouldn't you
season that? If you were about to eat it, wouldn't you season that? So I think that's it for me.
Yeah.
Lynn, sorry.
Lynn, do you want to add anything?
Oh, I don't work in the kitchen, thank goodness for everyone. But my first job in a restaurant, I'd never worked in one, so I started out as a weekend brunch host and worked my way into covering shifts for when people didn't show up to food run or cashier. And anyhow, I became a server at this little French place on Sunset Boulevard. It's not there anymore. And the chef there was very celebrated. I don't make this mistake anymore, but I remember I was running food and I grabbed a plate of fries with whatever else I was running because they had waited so long. But obviously, chef didn't tell me to take those fries for that specific table. So I got very, very yelled at. And I responded, shout out to another show, Shogun, stoicism. I don't know who taught it to me, but I sort of just knew this is what happens. This is the first time a chef is yelling at me, and I need to just take it. And I need to apologize. And honestly, I frankly felt really bad because you do have to wait for instruction. You have to wait, fries, 55, you repeat 55, and you go, and that was my first mistake. I think also what that situation taught me is that, that chef never bothered to learn my name. When he eventually learned it, he mispronounced it. To this day, I ran into him all these years later, and he no longer owns restaurants. Those restaurants failed, and he still mispronounced my name. And and it's these tiny little anecdotes about how did this person make me feel that always inform how I try to make my employees feel. And it is really strange to also, as you're running your restaurant, to not recognize yourself. You start acting. I mean, it's such a high. The bear is, a lot of it is accurate. A lot of it is not also. But I remember when I had first opened Here's Looking at You, deeply stressful. And to have real customers in the restaurant, especially when you don't recognize these people. These are not people that love you. These are strangers making a reservation, coming to enjoy your restaurant, and we operate a chef-driven restaurant, and we're sort of moving out of this, but it was like a strict no modifications kind of restaurant. We were serving this ice cream sandwich for guests who we'll call VIPs. So we were just sending a cookie sandwich that was not on the menu to guests that were friends of the restaurant, or my friend of the chef, someone that was an investor, etc. Anyway, someone that was married to my best friend at the time, my best friend, my childhood best friend, someone that helped me, like, give me money, did all the plants in my restaurant, and his husband at the time just wanted the ice cream that was inside the ice cream sandwich, like another scoop of it. And so I went to the back to get that scoop of ice cream, and my business partner was so effing mad at me. And like we just had this huge, crazy argument, which was probably just a lot of pent-up anger from like trying to open and construct a restaurant together. And I just remember going into the office, I slammed the door. It's a very small restaurant. Everyone heard the door slam for sure. And I went into the restaurant and I threw a hanger at the wall. And that hole is still there in the restaurant. And you're just, you just sort of stand back and you're like, this isn't even me, But yeah, I mean, but we make mistakes, as Danielle pointed out. And what we've learned is, this is obviously not how, it's like, I don't have kids, but I don't want my kid to ever see me behave this way. So I certainly wouldn't want my employees to see me nor behave this way. Oddly, in my opinion, if there's any restaurateurs out there, I actually feel the situation is reversed. The sort of the nuisances of the staff are now the staff, like front of house. All the employees have all the rights. Like they call out. I mean, can you remember call out year 2022? I mean, nobody came to work. Like they would just call, and you would never in our age. I mean, I don't even think I'm sick. But like this day and age, like they're lazy. And they get away with everything. And so now we're striking a balance between the two. And, one of the chefs that works with me now, I just love that, when I meet people that are parents, it's such a window into another world. And obviously it makes me closer to all of you and my guests and everyone. It's a way to relate. But my chef right now has three kids like under 7 or what have you. And he owns another restaurant. I mean, he's just helping me out right now. And I am amazed at what this man can balance and the patience that he has. Our restaurant has 2 cooks. I mean, this is something that I don't think a lot of guests realize. And I think because I'm not a cook and I care so much about what people must be going through. And so if we're lucky to have a busy night right now and they're in the shits and all the tickets are there, and the guests are waiting for steak, big, thick baseball steaks. Do you know how long that takes on your grill? And imagine when 20 other people are ordering it at the same time.
Well.
And medium well done. Oh my God. And they're complaining about the time that it takes for it to hit the table. And I'm so immensely impressed with how my cooks still manage to still do their job, to not completely quit and walk out. And the chef that's also helping out, like going back there and then helping. I mean, we really are in it together. So yeah, he has an enormous amount of composure. I really do give it up to my friend, who's my chef at the moment.
I have one last round of questions for you. So we've been talking, a lot about the challenges. Let's end on some solutions. And let's start with you. It's like, pick one. No. I mean, you've been looking at this data and talking to people in the field for so long. And I mean, you mentioned mentorship at the beginning. Is that really where we need to be focused on? Or are there other things that we can do to foster women in this industry?
I think there's an overall responsibility from everyone, from the media to the diners to investors, to really look at who is doing great things and support these businesses. And so if you want to see more women chef owners, support women-owned businesses. It's really that simple. Put them on panel, put them on radio show, put them on magazines, put them on TV, right? There needs to be this representation of people seeing people who look like them and people who are not, who might be different and who has always gotten the attention. Again, from whether it is media, whether it is capital, or wherever you are dining. And it's just digging a little bit deeper. If you are in any positions to be placing people at organized conferences forever, so it's not just taking the first 10 names that are coming your way. You're doing sponsorships, for example. Like, who are the people you're bringing? Dig deeper and look at having more women involved. Is everything you're doing always starting with 50% women? That is such an easy way to just ensure a lot more parity and a lot more equity, period, right? To make sure that you're just not just taking same old for everything. That's where to start, frankly. It's creating the system. It's making sure that there's just greater representation overall, and that anyone who has any sort of power to bring in more women, more people of color in a conversation, any conversation does so. And then you can get to mentorship, because there are more people in leadership position, more people who have that access, more women who are getting TV shows or magazine covers, radio shows, all these kind of things, right? So that all of that helps and really just falls down. Has there's a trickle down effect.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe you'd like to speak from the perspective of regarding her.
Yes, regarding her is built on a foundation of uplifting women-owned businesses in food and beverage. And when we created it, I thought of the name, knew we needed a website so that we could create a list of all the women that we were going to start a festival. That's what it was. And I needed a website to put the festival with the dates, with everybody's like specials and activations that were going to happen in this particular like span of week. And I wanted it to launch on the anniversary of the Women's March that had happened 4 years prior, I think, at that point. Anyway, my staff all had COVID, so the restaurant had to close for a week, like a whole 7 days. So I spent the week creating regarding her on my computer in my studio apartment. And I just get very excited about people winning things, especially if you don't know them. I love talking about new people that you don't know. And I think I'm very lucky at this stage in my career that I have received opportunities to sit on panels or be on a cover of a magazine, all of those things. And from there, just like Spider-Man, it's like, what is the responsibility quote?
Great power comes
yes.
great responsibility.
So I understand that there is a responsibility to pay it forward. How I behave reflects on maybe all women, I don't know, but like when I make choices, if I'm lucky to have a night off, it's important for me that I carefully select where I'm dining. This is what I was saying in the parking lot. We all love Houston's, trust me. Now is not the time to go to Houston's. You know what I'm saying? You need to support your small, independently owned restaurant.
This is Lynn quoting, okay?
Yeah.
Don't go to Houston. Go to your family.
They're going to blacklist me now. They're not going to pour my warm martini in a chilled glass. Okay, I will do that. I will do that at my restaurant. I'm happy to. But it's, so I'm in this odd position, very humbling, where people 10, 15 years younger than me, women especially, will reach out to me, cold DM, to just ask for a coffee, just 20 minutes of my time to see what it would be like if I can, maybe they're a pop-up now, or maybe they're operating out of a window now and they want to have like a full dining experience, and they want to give advice for how to find investors. It is my job to say yes in those cases. And you have to have a tier. I can't say yes to everything. But if it's gonna be a woman brave enough to DM me with a solid plan, and I know, and I've tried her food or what have you, or I know how she works, these moments, like I met Danielle at my takeout window and she was holding her infant. And I was making $50 a day probably at that time. Rent was expensive. But I remembered her, and she was very close with my only cook at the time because 65 people were laid off. But I always remembered this woman that had the Italian husband and the concept and the pop-up and all of these things, and what a glorious feeling to see, James Beard nomination, best restaurant in Highland Park, etc. I mean, these are extraordinary moments, but like, you gotta be nice. Just be nice to everybody, and choose a nice small restaurant. Go to a website like regardingherfood.org and look at the map. You know you're going to be in Santa Monica. Search with intention.
And Lynn is too modest to say that, but in her studio apartment, she was also designing all of the Regarding Her merch, which is absolutely brilliant. So when you're on the Regarding Her website, also look up the merch because she does it and it's beautiful.
I love when Anne buys all the way from New York. I'm like, man, yeah, because I'm also looking at all of your personal details because I'm like, yes, sale.
Sorry. Danielle, how would you want to help support other women?
Okay, well, I mean, Lynn spoke so much about it, but one thing that I felt has helped so much is Regarding Her. And this woman and a few others have created something that is so special. It's something that it brightens my day when I get an email from them, or we're going to do some sort of fundraiser, or we're going to tackle, Women's Month, and like, what event can you do, Danielle? And I'm like, I'll do whatever you want. Like, it's just about supporting each other. There's not that many of us out there. And I think the friendships that also come along with it are just their lifetime. Like she said, she met me when I had an infant. Now I have a 5-year-old. That's at least 5 years that we've had at least supporting each other, me going to All Day Baby, making sure that if I'm going to have a breakfast, if my son's going to have a breakfast, why do I need it to be McDonald's when I can go get an amazing biscuit sandwich with bacon and strawberry jam? Like, why would it, So I think it's about, and also not being afraid to do the DM, not being afraid to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and say, you know what, I maybe tackled something that was way bigger than I thought, and you have a restaurant, and how did you go through this? And 99% of the time, they're gonna not say, F off. They're just gonna be like, absolutely, like, here's something, or, here's another thing that you can do. So I think it's about communication, really, and vulnerability. As women, you don't want, especially in a world of restaurants, you don't want to seem vulnerable. You want to act like you know what it is that you're doing, because you have to compete against the man that acts like he's machismo and he's got it. So it's like, but at times it was like, even to the, how do you do a P&L? What does a P&L need to look like? And when you're opening a restaurant, they want 2 years of that? Like, how do I make these numbers up? But if you ask, right? Like, I'm like,
because you are making them up.
You're making them
they
up.
Are made up numbers.
They're made up. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm gonna make $2 million this year. What's that gonna look like? But at the end of the day, it's like, wait, that's when you contact a friend and you're like, okay, you've had a business that was running for a year. Is $1 million even that? Is it 2? Is it 3? What is it? Is my labor going to be half of that? What does that number look like? And so I think it's about asking the right questions. It's about having the communication and about really being there for each other. A lot of women, or a lot of people, and I found this more to LA than New York, but I will say it, a lot of people here like to talk. And they will be like, yeah, no problem. Like, email me and I got you and this. And you're like, I emailed you like 5 times and I didn't get a response. And okay, you're busy. But, I think everybody wants to like help you, but they really don't have the time. And so I think it's like realistic help. Like, can you really help, or am I wasting your time? Am I wasting mine? And I think people just need to be honest about that.
Don't be so flaky, Angelinos.
Please.
I'm flaky. I'm so sorry. Okay, so with that, why don't we open up the conversation to the audience? Questions for this wonderful panel of guests. We have a microphone coming around. Oh, and just a quick disclaimer, because I've gone long, I have poor time management skills. If you can, try to keep your question as short as you can. Thank you.
Hello. I'm a woman in the industry as well, 8 years in, past 3 years getting into management, now in a sous chef for corporate and trying to upscale that ladder. My question is, trying to be in a male-dominated industry, can't cry, have to be just as hard, have to compete and be the machismo, or sorry, the word that you just said, sorry. How do you compete and be truly who you are when it's seen as also maybe sometimes irrational, being emotional, and not seeing as I'm just as competing, just as how hard the chef next to me is? It's looked at different because I am a woman. That's kind of like my struggle right now.
Go work somewhere else. Seriously, go find a place that's gonna nurture you.
I agree. I feel like for me as a woman, maybe I'm a little too sensitive with my guys, but it might not be the right place for you, because the right place will want to nurture you, and they'll want to say, like, like I said, I grew up in the no crying in baseball, like, get it out of there. But I have meltdowns in my restaurant. I have full-on ones. I mean, I take a block so that they're not watching chef, like, to have a full one. But, when I come back, I wipe my tears off. They can see that I cried, and it's not a bad thing. It's just about, all right, that was a tough struggle. Now let's get it together and, like, let's have the best service that we can. So I think sometimes it might be the leader.
Yeah, I agree. I've been trying to think about my current staff, in particular at Ollie Baby, and I have these 3 women at the moment in charge of our pastry department, and as of yesterday, all 3 of them are essentially being promoted to run the whole restaurant. And I'm trying to see, like, how we got here, like, just while we've been on stage and in this conversation. And I think you gotta find an ally in the restaurant, and you never know who it's gonna be. Like, sometimes I feel insecure that maybe my cooks and my chefs feel like they can't relate to me because I don't do what they do. But it's important that I think that they see that I see what they do. And when the opportunity arises, as it showed up for me yesterday, I mean, they're wildly talented. They are calm under pressure. They know that the private place at the restaurant is in the walk-in. Go there, use it. Don't get locked in like dum-dum. But, like,
Don't you do that?
but, I actually find the men in my team, and because I don't really think about it, but everyone's a little bit emotional. It's an emotional environment. For me, it's very important that I just act right, like, even at all times. And sometimes it's acting in truth. I think my team has an understanding if I'm having a difficult day or dealing with something challenging. I usually just mention it, but I'm pretty direct. I think it's one of the more hilarious things at my restaurants that I'm also the most feared person there, because I'm so small. And, but, like, the valet guy's afraid of me, like, and all of these people. But it's a matter of how you manage your problems. And I've understood and learned along the way, it's just better to be direct about what you need. So if you need, I'm not sure what you need at your job right now, but let's say you need your chef's attention. I hear this a lot about how, line cook is a sous chef once for like 3 months and thinks that they can be the chef of a restaurant. But the truth is no, as to Anne's point, you need to get nurtured. So it's like, maybe you made a new sauce this week, or maybe you thought you could enhance a sauce from last week, I'm not sure. But you need the attention of somebody else, ask for that attention. And then from there, you create more communication and more dialogue between you and this other ally. Of course.
Any more questions? Oh, you guys are sleepy. You want to go home. All right. Did I hear? Sorry?
I was just saying, everybody wants cake like I do.
All right. One last question from me, and then cake and home. A place in LA, if you can, because I know you travel a lot, that you recommend that's women-owned, independent, that you like to go grab a meal, that you'd recommend to the group?
I'll go first just because I've been thinking about it. I'm very lucky to have a lot of women in this business. But what came to me yesterday, because I was going to the Hollywood Bowl and I needed a picnic, and if I lived closer, this would be the place. But I would love for you guys all to go downtown. Downtown LA needs a lot of love right now. And my friend Lydia Clark owns DTLA Cheese Superette and the wine bar next door that's like tinned seafood capital called Get or Kippered. The Instagram handle is Get Kippered. Lydia is amazing. She knows cheese, and I wish I was an expert in fromage like her. She's fabulous. She's beloved. Order a cheese box. Everybody would be cheese boxing right now. So please go support downtown. And they have really fun events and movie screenings at Kipper too.
For me, it is Joselitos in Tahanka. Yeah, Tamara is one of my very best friends that we have, we've just gotten to know each other through regarding her, and she has been somebody that has supported me. We've supported each other, and it is like the best, right? Like just homey Mexican food. So when I want a really good tamale and like a really good margarita, I'm not gonna lie, after a long day's work, it's just home. And I think that and she is, like I said, she is a wonderful woman. The restaurant has been operating for more than 20 years, and it's just something that I feel like sometimes those restaurants get lost. And especially in a world in LA when so much opens up every single day, and you have to what's new? Well, what's old and what's really good? And for me, it's comfort.
And she's here.
She's here.
She's the best.
Wave to the people. Oh, hello. Thanks for being here.
For me, it's Shuntos in Santa Monica. Sandra Cordero is also a well alum and part of Regarding Her. I live in New Jersey, and I've been there 3 times this year, just to tell you. So all of you in LA, even if you live in Pasadena, you have no excuse to not have made it. And so it's the best Spanish food I've had outside of Spain, amazing tapas, and over half of the wine list is female winemakers also. So that's one of my favorites. And it's a beautiful jewel of a restaurant.
Incredible. Well, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you for being here tonight. Thank you also to the James Beard Foundation. It's really been an incredible series. It's been a delight for LAist to partner with you. And thank you so much to our panel, Anne McBride, Chef Danielle at Duran-Zecca, and Lynn Ta. Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. Go get some cake and have a good evening.